Right. Good morning, everyone. I've got an interview today with Deon Barnard from Go Touchdown Travel, and he probably sends more Americans to South Africa than anybody else that I know. And we're going to talk to him about how Americans experience South Africa, what they get to experience while there, and talk about a little bit about the travel. So I want to jump in, John, if you do a quick introduction, and let's get going with the questions.
Yes, good morning, and thank you, Walter, for having me. Yes, Deon Barnard, or Barnard, as they would pronounce it in South Africa. And yes, been selling travel or promoting South Africa since 2009.
So let's talk about that. I mean, that's really important to us. In terms of, you travel throughout the US, you go to all the travel shows,
yeah.
you set up a stall,
yeah.
and then you start promoting South Africa, and your competitors are basically every other country in the world that's
right.
setting up something there. And you're really competing about, for these American travelers to spend their easily earned US dollars in South Africa, right? So how do you promote South Africa, and what's the kind of process that you go through selling South Africa?
Yeah, thank you for that, Walter. So obviously, I have at least 2 and sometimes even 3 booths. A booth or a stand is a 10 by 10. So I'll either have a 10 foot by 20 foot or a 10 foot by 30 foot. So we have a big presence. And one thing that I have maintained since 2009 is I employ on the sales front, my travel specialists, my travel consultants are all expats from South Africa, because by default they become specialists just because they're general knowledge. What's the weather like? Yeah, how far is this? What about this? What about safety? What about security? What about, how can I fly to Kruger National Park? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Because I mean, all the expats that we talk to always say the same thing. No matter if you leave Africa, there's something that gets into your soul that you can't get rid of, and that you can't train into somebody that hasn't been there and lived there and is from there. Totally. And I'm sure that comes across in the passion with which they sell South Africa to a potential.
100%.
Traveler.
We just have to teach them how to sell and the product, but the whole general knowledge and what's in your heart. You can take me out of the bush, but you can't take the bush out of me. That
absolutely. Yeah.
My agents have no problem talking about South Africa. As a matter of fact, they need to talk less sometimes because the passion is definitely there.
So is there a kind of a general impression that Americans would show up to the booth about South Africa? Is it mostly ignorance, or would they have known something, or is it questions still about the government or maybe safety? What's the general impression that they have when they show up at the booth before they've even been or spoken to anybody there?
Yeah. So, short answer, yes to all of the above.
All right.
So honestly, there is a group that know about it. They know people that have traveled, and they say to you, it's on my bucket list. They tell you straight, they've done their homework, they know it's a place to visit, they know the value, they know, I always describe South Africa, when I compare it to the Kenyan and Tanzanias, etc. I say to people that South Africa is a buffet table. There's a little bit of everything. So if you can't make up your mind what dish you want, there is the whole spread. That's what South Africa offers you. But one word, adventure. They see South Africa as an adventure, truly a bucket list experience, because they get to eat food, drink wine, and do things that are very, very unusual compared to a lot of other destinations. And let's face it, for $1.75 and $2.25 for a beer and a wine, your money does go a long way in South Africa when you travel with dollars.
That's very true. I mean, most of the people who watch our channel and follow the Wesia app, They are expats. They've chosen to leave South Africa for whatever reason.
Yeah.
There might be a lot of negativity about the country, whatever the reason. But I'm sure everybody can agree that it's still an incredibly unique, beautiful, and fascinating place to visit. Right?
Totally. Totally.
You cannot compare what South Africa offers an international tourist with anywhere else. The food, the extreme beauty of the nature, the diversity. So now you've sold the product. Take us through what are the highlights that you're selling and taking these people to when they've now committed and they're going to South Africa. Where are you going to take them? What does a typical tour look like?
Yeah.
What are the add-ons? Walk me through that.
So when they arrive in South Africa, tired and 14, 15 hours later, it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So by the time they clear customs and check into their first little hotel, which we normally put them right there at the City Lodge or the Piermont or just something there right there at the airport for the first night. So they can check in by 8 o'clock, they've had a little meal, they're in bed and they sleep it off. So they wake up the next morning and they go, "Who's it? I'm ready." And then we grab them in the reception and off we go on our experience and our journey. Go Touchdown is directly linked to the Touchdown Group in South Africa. Now, the Touchdown Group owns all the properties, all the lodges, the hotels, the boutique hotels down Cape Town and up the West Coast, Waterberg, Kruger National Park area, the transport, the operation, the staff. I mean, there's over 1,000 people in the operation just in South Africa. So maximum 6 people in a group, full board, guide, driver, taking care of you from the minute you arrive until you leave. So very small and very intimate. So never exceeding more than 6. Now, if there's 12 or 18 people going, I'll split them up into little groups of 6, 6, 6 and give them each a driver and a guide. So no microphone, "Hey, can you hear me in the back of the bus?" None of that. But yeah, definitely safari is number 1.
Okay.
Right up there, number 1. But as
so they would fly into Johannesburg.
Yes.
For this typically,
yes.
or
yes, Johannesburg. From there, after they check into their airport hotel the next morning at 10 o'clock when we pick them up, we drive through to the Waterberg, Royal Murrabisi. It's about 2.5 hours. It's a big 5, luxury 5-star lodge. And then from there, we take them across through Magubu's Kloof. We stop for lunch. On the way, the little curio shop, little pankies, winkels, etc. Because they want to see those things.
Yeah.
All the little chatskis, little collectibles, conversational pieces. And then we get them into Hoedspruit. The other lodge we have up there is Tsukudu Game Lodge. It borders the Kruger National Park. Also a big 5 game reserve. We spend 4 nights there. And while we are there, obviously, it's given. We have to take people for a full day, more early morning until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We take them and spend the whole day in the Kruger National Park. We lunch at one of the camps there, and we come back in time for people to have a big dinner in the Boma. And then from there, Hoedspruit Airport, you can fly them either straight down to Cape Town, because many add Cape Town as an add-on.
That was going to be my question. Yes, like the tours in Cape Town, wine routes, or would Americans go shark diving? What would a typical American want to see in Cape Town?
Well, what's there to do in Cape Town? It's like a city tour. No, well, let me explain to you. And then you go through the Robben Island, Table Mountain, the Hermanus, the whale watching from June through to November, and of course a whole day in the winelands. And obviously, after we spent 4 or 5 nights in the Cape Town area, Cape Point, Cape Agulhas, taking them Chapman's Peak. We also, because we own a property up the West Coast, we take them up to Langebaan, because up there is the blommetjies, the little flowers, certain time of the year. There's the West Coast National Park. There's the Fossil Museum. Those that go down into Cape Town come back and say, probably the best food I've ever had. The wine is, I love South African wine, but it's different, meaning it's very different when you drink it in South Africa versus the wine that you get here. Obviously, just time and place and the whole thing, etc. And
I mean, there wouldn't be a South African who wouldn't jump at the chance of going to do that, going back home and doing this tour. But we kind of know what to expect. So my next question is, and this is quite key, I mean, I want to understand what impressions Americans come back with from South Africa. So they had this kind of preconceived idea, some of them, or there was ignorance. Yes. Then they went on this incredible tour that you describe now, regardless of what combination of packages.
Yeah.
What's the feedback? How many people go? How many people would you send a year, or would you think from all the companies go to the US? And what's their impression coming back? If you can walk me through that.
Yeah. So, okay, now that is a very interesting question, because the reason is, first of all, we average about just over 200 travelers a month. So we do about 2,500 a year.
Wow.
And we've been doing that for the last 13, 14 years. So in every week. So every week we got tours, in season, out of season, peak season, etc. Now, once they've been there and they come back, as much of a cliche as this sounds, I promise you, you will not believe how often people say, it was life-changing. Okay, Americans in particular, it was life-changing, and it is probably the best vacation I've ever had. And when they use a word like life-changing, I've often thought about it. You know, like, what do people mean by that? And my definition of that is, you know, when is the last time you experienced something for the very first time? And if you had to ask yourself that question, I believe that 99% of all the experiences that they have in South Africa are first-time experiences. First time on the back of a Jeep, first time I came across an elephant, first time I heard a hippo cry, first time a rhino came charging around the corner, first time I sat there at the fireplace and heard a lion roar and said, whoa, where's this lion? And the guides told me it's miles and miles away, don't worry about it, you know. So it's life-changing, they love it, the value. But the one thing, I would say the one thing that surprises Americans the most is the openness and the hospitality and the warmth. How compassionate South Africans are, and they'll put your arm around you. They become friends. The guides and the clients become friends after they spend a week there, because in Afrikaans, that gasvryheid, that hospitality that South Africans offer, that warmth, where they dote on you and like, no problem. And can I have a no problem? Nothing's a problem in South Africa. I'll organize for you, no problem. I have people, last thing I want to tell you, because I can keep you here for days. I have people coming back. They come to the booth. They say they want to travel. We end up signing them up. They travel to South Africa, and a year later, they come back to the booth. You won't believe how many people can't get a word out because they are so emotional when they stand there and tell me what an experience they had, and then they go through their photographs with me. I will tell you, and I'm not talking about just the odd one. It happens. People whelm up. They get emotional. I've had people choke up that couldn't get a word out.
Us as South African expats, we know what we left behind, and it leaves a massive hole in your soul, leaving Africa behind to go for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
But I always say to people, South Africa is one of the most beautiful and incredible countries in the world to go and visit. This is just an objective fact. You can look at all the travel awards, South Africa, Cape Town, and safaris always ends up near the top, right? So correct. My last question to you, for us to wrap up, is if a South African sitting here in the US has a colleague that asks them, hey, look, I want to go on a tour to South Africa. How do they get in touch with your company? How can they proceed to get a tour booked and go and see our fantastic country?
So thank you. Go Touchdown Travel and Tours, obviously the name, as you can imagine, and the little airplane that points south, that points south, the little airplane landing south, is you go touchdown in South Africa. That's where the name comes from. and it's we have a beautiful referral program. You know, if someone refers a friend or a family member, and they get in touch with Go Touchdown Travel and Tours, Go Touchdown Travel, and they reference you, then we reward the person that has referred them with gift vouchers like Amazon or Visa cards or something like that. We all know one thing. It's the one thing we cannot, and you touched on it, you cannot argue with it. To go on vacation in South Africa, on a safari or a Cape Town experience, to go on vacation is an incredible experience. Put our little challenges and problems aside, we know what they are. We own it, and that is what it is. But to go on vacation, to go into the bush, those people working on those safari game lodges and on those wine farms, etc., have got no political agendas. They just, all they want to do is look after you, spoil you, because they know tourism is very important for their well-being. And you know, because the communities, the dad, the mom, the kids, the school, the whole community is supported. So when an American travels to South Africa and they stay in a safari lodge, believe you me, the indirect benefits from that community and the 80, 90, 100 people that we employ in that area near those lodges benefits the community just by traveling there.
That's absolutely why, I mean, I wanted to talk to you, because I wanted to understand the impressions Americans have of South Africa, maybe before and after, and understand how many people you sent. And it was, you know, it's incredible that so many Americans go there and spend their dollars. So, I mean, absolutely thank you for your time and for the work your company does in, you know, promoting South Africa as a brand. That's what we're doing. We compete against other countries for these dollars, for this business. So incredible job that you do. And, you know, I wish you all the success going forward with your company.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you for having me.